You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, it's your guy Pat Lane here with my man Matt St. Jean. And Matt, there's a lot going on tonight. If you're into this kind of thing, Reacher just came back on Amazon Prime. That's a big show that I'm a big fan of. And of course, the Four Nations game is going on between the U.S. and the Canadians as we speak right now
in Boston.
In Boston. At the Garden. So really lots of stuff going on. So we appreciate you people being here with us. Or even if you're listening the next day, we get it. We understand you had some things on your plate.
If speaking of TV shows, are you a Severance guy? Because new episode of that came out tonight.
Yes. So I am. I do not have Apple Plus anymore because one of the things had to go. And so I watched the first season, absolutely loved every second of it. And I am waiting until the second season is basically complete so that I can do like a 30-day free trial again with Apple Plus and then watch the second season. So I'm not up to date on it, but I will be at some point watching it.
Okay. Yeah, we're caught up with that. We're probably watching tomorrow. So
how many episodes are they? 3 or 4 episodes in?
4 or 5 now, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
This might be episode 5 that just came out. If anyone's in the chat and knows, throw it in there. But yeah, I think Severance is the best thing on TV right now. From the sample size of I'm watching 2 things that are on TV right now.
What else are you watching?
St. Denis Medical.
Yes.
It's pretty funny. It's like same style as Parks and Rec, The Office, like that type of thing.
Okay.
I think it's the funniest version of one of those since those went off the air.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a procedural guy. So I watch a lot of The Rookie with Nathan Fillion. I watch NCIS and The Rookie and Will Trent and I'm like an old man.
I used to watch NCIS LA with my parents growing up. Those are fun shows.
NCIS now has a Sydney one as well.
I saw that.
And then there's an Origins, which is like the beginning of Gibbs. It's like a whole thing. So they're
gonna milk that for everything.
Oh, yes, they are. So I mean, don't forget now it's Dick Wolf. It's the same guy that did Law and Order, and so he had a million offshoots of Law and Order and everything else like that. So
when he did, it all started with Jag, right?
I think Law and Order was the first one. I think.
No. But I mean the NCIS part.
Oh, the NCIS thing started with Jag. Yes,
and then,
yes, you're right about that. Yeah. So, anyways, lots of things out there to watch. I'm also watching The Pit on HBO or Max or whatever it's called now.
I've seen the ads for it. It looks
Noah Wiley.
Intense.
It's pretty good. Okay. I like it. It's a procedural type of like medical drama, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm also binging The White Lotus because Nicole, my wife, enjoys that show, wants to watch season 3 with me, and so I pushed through the first season. I'm watching the second season, and it's like it's okay. People love it, but I'm like, I
watched season 1 of White Lotus, and I liked it a lot, and I also was like, okay, I'm good. I don't know if I need more.
Right.
Although season 3 has what's her face? Totally the actress's name. She was in Sex Education. British actress.
But
she's I love her character in Sex Education, which is a fun show.
Yeah, no, I never saw that one.
It's a good show. I will say I'm not sure if they did a good job of tying up the ending. So entertaining to watch, but as the seasons went on, it felt like they got away from them a little bit.
Let's see. There's Parker Posey, Leslie Bibb, Carrie Coon from Massachusetts, by the way. And
Amy Lou Wood as Chelsea.
Amy Lou Wood. There you go. Way down the list. Would have taken me forever to get there.
Yeah, I figured I was just going to look that up. Otherwise,
But okay.
our podcast is
Appreciate
going to
that.
start off with 5
Yeah,
minutes
it
of us
would not have been
naming.
good. But yeah, Michelle Monaghan, great actor. Big fan of hers. Anyways. All right, let's get into what we're really here for is some Patriots talk. Do we want to start with the you want to start with the mock draft first? You want to go through their signings?
We'll do the mock draft last, I think. That's the
yeah, I like that. That's what everyone's here to see.
Exactly.
So Patriots did sign 2 guys, Ben Brown and DeMontre Jacobs, 2 offensive line depth players. 2 guys that you better hope and pray are not starting for you next year. With that being said, I don't hate the process of signing them. They're short money deals, and they're guys that can come in and can compete for depth positions, right? And even if they don't make the roster, right, they're guys that, can at least push other players for, training camp thoughts and things like that. So, so I think that for me, at least, I don't mind the signings. I just think, again, like really when it comes down to is that it's really not going to have an impact on, on the Patriots 53-man roster when we're talking about like who's going to be playing in the games. That being said, depth pieces are important. And DeMontre Jacobs, I think, wasn't good, and neither was Ben Brown necessarily, but they're guys that if, a bunch of guys get hurt, theoretically, all right, maybe they're there in a pinch for, 1 game or half a game or a series or 2 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to split this into 2 segments because I have differing opinions on the 2. Ben Brown, I think, is one that will absolutely figure into the 53-man roster situation because, your center depth chart right now, at the top is David Andrews. He said he's coming back. He's on the 2025 graphic for the team. He didn't play well last year when he was healthy. You could tell he was starting to fall off the year before. Yeah. I love David Andrews. I don't know what player you're getting this year. Maybe the rest and the time off is a blessing in disguise for him. He can come back a brand new him and turn back the clock a little bit. There's a chance that he comes out there and he just doesn't have it anymore this year, which would be disappointing again because I love him. But that's possible. So that's your number 1. Your number 2 in the depth chart right now probably is Cole Strange. But like Cole Strange wasn't drafted to play center. The people that converted him to center no longer here. And they were the ones that, that Brown's coaching staff was the ones that evaluated him thinking he'd be a center. That's kind of why they made that move. Will he even stay at center for next year? I think is an open question. And then is he good enough to make the roster? I don't know. He didn't really see anything that stood out one way or the other when he did play at the end of this season, this past season. So maybe he gets some of his athleticism back and he can be a great player for them. Maybe that's just, he doesn't make the roster. That's very possible. Ben Brown was serviceable. He's not that good of a player, but he's good enough to be among the 53 best for some team in the NFL, I think, at center. Might not be in New England.
Yeah.
But if a guy's good enough to make a roster somewhere, I think there's the exclusive rights free agents. You can bring them back for pennies. There's no reason not to bring them back and see what you can get. And we'll see if they add in free agency at center, add in the draft at center. Ben Brown is someone where I think if they don't think Cole Strange is a center and David Andrews doesn't have it anymore, there's a world where Brown is your week 1 starter. And I don't think we want to live in that world, but it could happen. And maybe he improves. He's still a young player. It's also a world where he gets cut after minicamp. The new coaching staff gets to look at him and they say, yeah, this isn't our guy. We're gonna look elsewhere. So high variance there. DeMontre Jacobs, I think, is a little bit lower variance. He was the worst offensive lineman that consistently played for this team last year. Led the team in pressures allowed. Led the team in sacks allowed. Not good as a pass blocker. Not good as a run blocker. This feels to me like a move of he's cheap and he's already here. so we might as well keep him in the building and see what happens. He is a guy who I think could very realistically get cut before we even get to training camp. They might bring him in for OTAs and mini camp and all that, and let the new coaching staff get a look at him, work with him, see how he does. And if you think he's good enough to possibly compete for a job as a swing tackle for you, all right, then we're going to bring him into camp and let him be part of that battle. And if you get to work with him in the summer and in the spring, and you just don't see that out of him, then you move on from him.
Yeah. That's not a bad way to put it. I agree with that. By the way, Ted just got here and was asking what we're doing a draft. We are doing a draft, Ted, I promise. But we just had a few things to talk about as at first. So we will we'll go from there. So
yeah. One other roster move.
Yes, Sion Taki gone. Look, the linebacker depth chart was already small to begin with. I don't know. He stinks. Doesn't matter. He wasn't good when he played here. He's not a scheme fit for what Mike Vrabel wants to do defensively. And frankly, he didn't play very well when he was here. So yeah. So I'm not heartbroken about it.
Yeah. I look back at that move to not sign Mac Wilson and instead sign Taki. One, I think you're really regretting right now, because I think Mac Wilson would probably be a fit in this new scheme. We give him a little bit of pass rushing juice, give them some of that speed. I think you probably miss him. So just doing the numbers, Mac Wilson got 3 years, 3-year deal, nothing guaranteed in the last year. They can cut him with very little dead money in his 3rd year. So it's excuse me. Basically like a 2-year deal here. $6.4 million guaranteed in Mac Wilson. So cap numbers 3.4, 4.9, 4.8 over the 3 years. Yeah. Taki was 1 year. Yeah.
2 years. It must have been 2 years because they wouldn't have cut him.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. It doesn't have... Oh, here we go. 2 years, 3.1 million guaranteed, 6.645 total. It's not, if you look at them as like 2-year deals, essentially, which is what Mac Wilson basically is, because you have an out, not a whole lot different.
Right. So, they obviously thought Taki was going to be a better fit, and he wasn't.
And he wasn't. I don't think he's an awful player. I think he'll probably make a roster next year. I don't think he's a fit for what they want to do, and he's just too inconsistent. There were good moments from him. There were moments where he looked like the best linebacker on the field in that group, which was really more about the group than about him, I think. But yeah, it doesn't. If they kept him, it wouldn't have moved the needle. Cutting him doesn't move the needle.
I agree.
Yeah, not hard to replace someone like that.
Yeah. Also, Jack asked about Tavai. Will Jelani Tavai be the next to get cut? I don't believe so. No. I think, and I was a big proponent of the fact that it was Kyle Van Noy syndrome, and so it's a little bit out of place perhaps. But Kyle Van Noy 1 year, Donta Hightower got hurt. Van Noy stepped into his role and was just god awful. I mean, god awful. And Felger and Maz were calling him, all sorts of terrible names and saying he was the worst player of all time and all this other stuff. And Hightower came back and Van Noy back into his actual role and was good again, right? I think that's a very similar situation with Tavai. Tavai is not a number 1 linebacker. He's not the guy that should have the green dot. He's not like the number 1 inside linebacker for the Patriots. I think as a depth linebacker, he's a good player, right? Yeah. But he's not a guy that should be on the field at all times, in coverage, doing all these things. That's just not who he is. And I think if we can get him back to what he does well, he could be a good player. A great player? No. But a good player, and you need good, competent players, especially at a place like linebacker where you just don't have a lot of those guys. And so, when Bentley comes back, you want to add depth to the linebacker room anyways. But I just think Tavai is a guy that, is a useful piece as a depth player on your roster.
Another fact here with Tavai, if they cut him now, not only like they don't save money at all. It accelerates into this year. So you're actually paying more to cut him now against the cap, which they have so much cap space this year.
Yeah, but still.
I don't know if that's actually consequential, but if you bring him into camp and let him compete for a job and he loses it, then you actually get to save a little bit of money. There's still some dead money on it, but he's a guy, he might not make the roster, but I think contract-wise, and he was a good player for you in 2023. So, and this is where I think the coming weeks and months are going to be interesting. And as we get to see them on the field, we've seen a number of players in the building who played well in the past for New England, did not play well next year.
Yep.
Seeing what moves they make will kind of give us an idea of which players they think are salvageable and which ones they are less optimistic about. So obviously Taki is one, less optimistic. And, we're talking about a depth linebacker. Also, those guys are puzzle pieces. So you could be a decent player, an NFL player, and also not be the right fit for this puzzle. Like a guy like that's very replaceable. Tavai, the way he played in 2023 was like he's one of the highest rated linebackers by PFF. He played very well. He's just he's a high quality Robin. He cannot be Batman. He's incapable of being Batman.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? You need guys like that are okay, not great, but okay, and that's all right. Yep.
And it's Jack makes a good point here. He says, I think calling out the fans won't sit right with Vrabel, referencing Tavai's comments at the end of the year. I tend to agree. I also, if they cut him, obviously, well, that'll be a different story here. But if they're not cutting him and they're keeping him in the building, that probably tells you that they think it's salvageable. They think that's bad. Vrabel looks at it and says, hey, this is something that we can fix.
That's fixable.
And
right.
like say, hey, we're not doing that. We're getting these guys to buy in, which, that's another reason why you bring in Vrabel. One reason why I think there's probably going to be a lot of roster turnover between 2024 and 2026 is that 2025 is going to be about weeding out the guys who are not part of that culture at all. So Tavai, I think, has played well enough in the past. Probably that with the contract means you're going to give him the opportunity to see if he can be a fit in the new culture and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really the best way to do it. And so we'll see. I'm curious to see what happens in free agency and kind of where we go. And Burley asked a question about former Titans guys, and I'm not prepared for that question. But I do think that there are definitely guys that played for the Titans or even played for the Browns last year with Vrabel that he'll want to bring onto the roster. And so, we'll see where that leads. But I'm fascinated to see that. So anyways, all right, let's get into. You want to do the? Oh wait, no, you got something else first.
One other roster move that I think is probably worth mentioning here is the T. Higgins. Well, it's not official yet, but the T. Higgins stuff.
Yeah.
The report that the Bengals are probably going to franchise. I don't think it was the franchise tag. I think they were talking about the transition tag. From what I could tell, the discussion in Cincinnati is basically they want to sign him. The momentum is towards signing him, and they may tag him in some capacity if necessary to give them the time to negotiate the deal.
Yeah.
Which probably, if that's true, probably takes the Patriots out of the running for him.
Right. I agree with you. I do agree with you. If you're the Bengals, right? We'll see. But if you're the Bengals, I don't know how you could ever let him walk away. The way that Joe Burrow came out this offseason and talked about very publicly that he wanted both Higgins and Chase to stay, and he would be willing to renegotiate his deal to basically do whatever it takes to do that. To not take him up on that would be insane. And so, I feel pretty confident that T. Higgins is going to get a deal, at least a tag this year, and that Jamar Chase is going to get a deal. It just doesn't make any sense. If you're the Bengals, and I know the Bengals are the cheapest team in the NFL, I get that. But you have to understand your quarterback is the most important player on the team. he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have to at least attempt to keep him happy. You can't just let T. Higgins walk away with nothing. Now, if you sign him with the transition tag or the franchise tag or whatever the case may be, and someone offers you a crazy amount for him, then you take the deal and you say, hey, look, what are we going to do? You know, like, it is what it is. Sorry, Joe. Like, we got a first-round pick and a second-round pick and a third-round pick or whatever the case may be. We got a crazy haul for him. Yeah, we got to take him. What do you want us to do? And if that's the case, then that's the case. Fine. But, I just think that, that's what they're going to do.
Well, and I think some context around the T. Higgins stuff. If they tag him again, he just plays on the tag. The second tag here for the wide receiver is like $26 million.
Right.
We're talking about T getting 28 to 30 on the open market anyway.
It's crazy that it's so low.
Yeah, so they're going to save money that way anyway.
Right.
And the Bengals have cap space this year. I mean, they got 53 mil right now in space.
Yeah.
You can obviously, I think this is where your dad here in the chat, the point, Bengals may be the cheapest team in the league. This is where this matters. And this isn't a matter of do they have the money to pay T. Higgins. They have the money to pay T. Higgins. It's do they have the financial willingness to structure T. Higgins' contract in such a way that you can spread out the cap hits. Because if you want to do that, the way you do it is to backload the deal in such a way and add void years or whatever, or things like that. So you pay him a lot of money and you do it up front. You're giving him a lump sum of cash right now when he signs the piece of paper. And then, for the financial part of it, you're going to, spread it out over years, kind of the way the Saints have done. Put it on the credit card to be paid out later. And then, that still gives you, they got 53 in cap space. His cap hit would probably be, $18-20 million this year instead of the 26. And that gives you the extra wiggle room to go out and make the other additions you need to fix that defense.
Right.
Well, I don't know if the Bengals are willing to do that, which is where you get into this pickle where they can sign him. They can make this a good team. Are they willing to? I don't know. I haven't been before.
Right. And that's what it comes down to, and for the Patriots, all it really matters is whether they bring back T. Higgins or not. But if I was a Bengals fan, I'd still be pissed about it. But, what are you going to do?
So here's a question on this. If they tagged him but said, we want to sign him, but we're willing to listen to trade offers instead. T. Higgins is willing to sign a deal that's, 4 years, $30 million per year with New England. What draft capital are you willing to give up to go get him?
It's a good question. The hard part for me is that I don't really want to make that deal. I just don't really want to do it. I don't have any interest in doing it at this point. And the thing is because last year he was a year younger. We were a year earlier. You had a rookie quarterback as opposed to a second-year quarterback. I don't know. I mean, you're in the same situation you were, right? But they have so many holes. They have so many holes that I feel like, look, you're going to have to give up at least a second-round pick for him, at the very least.
But I'm asking for you what your minimum would be if the Patriots are the only team bidding. We're going to say, and you just have to hit a threshold. Would you give one of the thirds?
If you told me I had to give up one of the thirds, I'd do it.
Okay, I think that is exactly where I would land on this as well.
Which isn't enough. And ultimately means that you're not going to get him. But
maybe it is if other teams are feeling the same way about him, and you got a high third-round pick there.
I suppose that might be true.
Nice.
Yeah,
but I don't. So it's going to be a weird situation. And then I think my number 2 option here, if he was going to hit the market at receiver, I want to ask about other ones, is Chris Godwin. And he just basically agreed to push out the date when he gets his bonus money,
right? Which
to
means
give more time to negotiate a deal.
They're going to make a deal, and
you only do that if you're staying. So that's probably the top 2 receivers on the market, off the market.
Yep.
And
because that's what happens. This is what happens in the NFL. If the player is good, you figure out a way to keep him. That's what happens.
It feels like the Pats right now are walking into a dollar store with $1 million.
Right. Which is great. But ultimately, it just doesn't matter. And with the cap going up so much, teams have more cap space, right? Teams are going to have cap space, and they're going to have the cap space enough to be able to go out and re-sign the guys that they want to keep, right?
Well,
And you know,
and almost more importantly, there's going to be less cap casualties.
right.
Those guys, and there's going to be players out there who might have been available in the market who just won't be now because teams have a little bit more space to keep them or restructure or make it work.
Right. And so we'll see.
Is,
Ultimately, I think the Patriots will be able to sign some guys. I think that there'll be a few offensive linemen that end up available. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that those are going to be guys that are good players, but are a little bit past their prime or at the end of their prime, right? A guy like Ronnie Stanley, who I love Ronnie Stanley, but he's a guy he's going to be 30, 31, right? He's a guy that's, he's good, but, he's not 25, right? And so then that becomes the question, right? Is, are you willing to spend your money on a guy like that? Which I am. But again, does that get you back to where you need to be? And then, it's all really what it comes down to in the NFL. If you don't draft well, your team stinks. Period. The Patriots haven't drafted well in the last few years. They've had a few hits, right? Christian Barmore, of course, we don't know what his injury situation is going to be. Drake May, Kyle Duggar, I guess, if you want to count him, and Christian Gonzalez, right? And so you got some pieces, but the problem is that, you just don't have enough of those guys, and teams around the league do. And that's really what it comes down to. And so, and Jack asked a good question about, and I saw you just started with Chris Olave. He's a guy I would love for Chris Olave to come here. I just don't like, and I know the Saints are in cap hell every year. Right. And so maybe they're not willing to sign him to a long-term deal. Maybe they're looking at it saying, no, we think we're better off without him. I don't know why in the world they would ever think that. If he were available and he would be willing to sign a long-term deal here, sure, I would trade something for him to get him here. But I don't know. I don't see why the Saints would do that.
Well, the issue with Olave is the concussions. He's had 5 now in the NFL.
Right.
But he's a talented player. He's a good player. When he's on the field, I think he would be the best receiver in New England. He helps you, but also I don't know what price I'm willing to pay. I don't know how to quantify. I don't know how to put a value next to his name because he's a guy who could be probably a Pro Bowl level wide receiver at his best, who also is one hit away from never playing the sport ever again.
Yeah.
That's so much risk that okay, I'm probably not giving up a day 1 or 2 pick. That's a day 3 pick, but is New Orleans going to give up on a guy that talented for
probably not?
No,
probably not, unless they're not willing to re-sign him, and then they're taking something just to get something.
Yeah, which is possible. But
anyways,
yeah. Also, one last thing before we get into the ad and then the mock. So this is just a point here by Pasta Don. Says, why do we keep talking about signing high-priced free agent receivers? It's like putting on a new roof when the foundation is falling apart. Doesn't make sense. Start with signing Milton Williams. I agree with the sentiment, Pasta, Mr. Don. I think we have to remember the Patriots have an insane amount of money and draft capital. They have the money and draft capital to throw resources at every one of these problems. If the right players were available, they have the money to sign a high-priced free agent receiver and Milton Williams and 2 other good players this year. This is like I said, they're millionaire walking into a dollar store right now. The guys on the market, there's some good defensive players. Williams, Zach Bond look like they're probably hitting the market. On the offensive line, maybe Ronnie Stanley or Alaric Jackson. That's kind of it. This is not a good year for free agents again, 2nd year in a row. So there's no Hunter Henry that you're signing this year. There's no guy of that caliber, I don't think.
But again, I agree with the sentiment. You're right in the fact that we have to rebuild the trenches, right? And I think the Patriots will focus on doing that. That's one of those things that I love about having Vrabel is that I feel like he's going to be committed to rebuilding the trenches. So I'm happy about that. But again, we talk about that. We talk about the receivers because the Milton Williams and the Josh Sweat and those guys, not that those guys are obvious guys, but people want to talk about the receivers and they don't want to talk about the defensive linemen. The defensive linemen, I think, are just as important, if not more important. The offensive linemen are probably more important. But at the end of the day, people want to hear about the wide receivers and not about the offensive and defensive lines. We spent far too long last year talking about the offensive line. We talked about the offensive line all offseason. Like all offseason. That's all we talked about was the offensive line. It turned out that there was a good reason why we did it, but we spent a very, very long time talking about the offensive line. People just don't care, but people want to talk about other positions other than the offensive line. And so that's what we'll continue to do.
Well, like everything about this team except for right guard 1, quarterback 1, and cornerback 1, like kind of stinks right now. So like they need everything. There's nothing like they need the foundational positions and they need the flash ones. And it almost doesn't matter what order they get them in. They just need as many of them as fast as they can get them.
Yeah.
You're just grabbing anything you can get that's available right now. By the way, you mentioned talking about the offensive line last year. Remember the training camp, the joint practice with the Eagles, where their defensive line just was like making life hell. Like, you just couldn't evaluate New England's offense.
Right.
Like, you look back on that now. The defensive line that single-handedly won a Super Bowl, basically, against the worst pass blocking unit in the league.
Maybe ever assembled. Yeah.
That's in hindsight. Arranging for this joint practice might be the worst thing Jerod Mayo ever did. What was?
Yeah.
How is this going to work out?
Not great.
No.
So all right. Let's get into our ad read, and then we'll start the mock draft. We will go from there. Of course, our ad read is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in reward winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I played Prize Picks all year long. Love doing it. Of course, it's not football season anymore. It is basketball season, but that's okay. Oh, by the way, I said it's not football season anymore, but the combine's coming out too. And so don't forget the combine will be available on Prize Picks as well. And so that is something that you should certainly look into. It is the best way to get in on the action in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Florida, and of course, Massachusetts. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. They also have an injury clause in there as well. If one of your players goes out in the first half, and then, or for half of the game, and then doesn't come back, you actually get that refunded back to you. Pretty sweet. So what are you going to do is you're going to download the Prize Picks app. You're going to sign up, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. Don't forget to do that. Okay. You don't need to win your first $5 lineup. You just need to play it to get the $50 bonus. So again, download the Prize Picks app, put in the promo code CLNS. And when you play your first $5 lineup, you're going to get $50 instantly, right? Now, again, do you think that Steph Curry is going to get more than 5 3-pointers next week? Or do you think that Giannis is going to get more than 35 points? Or do you think that, Jason Tatum is going to, have 10 plus rebounds? Any of those things are a possibility, okay? And so just because football season's over doesn't mean Prize Pick season is over. And don't forget, playing the NFL Combine on there as well. So again, download the Prize Picks app, put in the promo code CLNS. And when you play your first $5 lineup, you'll get $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. All right.
Mock draft.
All right. So let's get into the mock draft. I will tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as you listen to this mock draft, it was not well received. It was not well received. People didn't like it. There are 96 comments currently on Pat's Pulpit, and I would say probably 75% of them are negative, and that's okay.
A couple of those are my alt accounts, so sorry about
that. And so look, one thing, and I didn't put this disclaimer in there in at the beginning of the mock draft. Not that people read this, but I didn't put the disclaimer in. I'll say it again here, just so everyone remembers. I never draft the same player twice. And so I will always start with I will draft a different player in every spot for every single mock draft I do. I've already drafted Abdul Carter. I've already drafted Mason Graham. I can't draft those guys anymore. Those guys are gone. They don't exist as far as my mock drafts are concerned anymore. Right? And so now we're at pick 4. So now the question becomes, okay, well, now what? And so I actually had the Patriots trading down from pick 4 to pick 8 with Carolina. Now, is this realistic? Is Carolina going to want to trade up from 8 to 4 after they just made this crazy trade for Bryce Young and they just are finally getting their picks back? Maybe not. Maybe not. But I also wonder, if they see someone there that they really think could change what they do, would they be willing to go up? Potentially. I also think for the Patriots, especially defensive line talent, you look at what's on the defensive line. I think in my opinion, Abdul Carter is a guy that is a head and shoulders above everyone else. But once you get past Abdul Carter, certainly defensive line wise, there's kind of a clump of guys in there. I think Mason Graham is the kind of the best of that next group. But, all these kind of next tier guys are kind of similar.
It's like 12 guys there were,
right.
They could be anyone. And there's a whole bunch of guys that are certified first round grades.
Yes.
But definitely not top 5 grades. And at least 2 of them, 1 or 2 of them are going to have to go in the top 5.
Yeah.
And one of those guys that we won't be talking about as the top 5 pick is probably going to get picked at 14 or something.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to, right? And so, anyways, long story short, at pick number 8, right now, and I'll give you the mock draft, NFL mock draft database, is the place that I like to go for the rankings because they compile everyone's rankings and give you a consensus board. And sometimes it's not, sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it isn't accurate, but I think it does a pretty good job. Jalen Walker is the guy I picked at 8. He's number 13 on their board right now. Jalen Walker played off-ball linebacker for Georgia, rushed the passer on the edge for Georgia, just has outrageous speed and quickness and bend off the edge, but also played off the ball linebacker. Just, really the guy that you feel like can play everywhere. And, could be an absolute freak. And so, and he's young still, but I like the idea of him at pick 8.
Yeah, I'm a big Jalen Walker fan. There might be a lot, but my player comp for him, stylistically, is Dante Hightower. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Patriots fan. This is a guy who played primarily off-ball linebacker at Georgia, but in big situations, you'll see him. He'll walk down to the edge and play outside linebacker, or they'll mug him up and they will play him in the A-gap. And they'll just play him right over the center, between the center and the guard, and he can blitz from there. He can blitz from the edge. He can be effective at either. And he can be, a guy who just plays off the ball. The difference here between he and Hightower is that this is the modern NFL version of that guy. About 10 pounds lighter, much better in pass coverage, much faster, better instincts there, and better as a QB spy. There is one play, I believe it's against Texas, where he's spying the quarterback. And just the second the quarterback starts to get out of the pocket, he makes a beeline for him and just comes up with a sack. And he's just got incredible closing speed. First of all, instincts to recognize, and then closing speed as a great tackler. So I love this. And you always get worried with anyone who's a linebacker this high because it's so mental. And you can draft a guy who has all the physical traits, and if the mental never catches up to the speed of the NFL, it's not going to translate. We all remember Aaron might not all remember. But Aaron Curry, the safest pick in the draft from Wake Forest in 08. I think 08 or 09. Well, that didn't work out. But no, I'm a huge fan of Walker. Would love to see him in New England. I think this is an appropriate range for him to go in.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's pick number 8 there. And so we'll kind of see how it goes. All right, second round. 2 picks in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
First pick is pick number 38, and I went with and I want to make sure I get I don't know if I'm going to get the first name right, but I'm going to go with it anyways. And that's Shavon Revel from East Carolina. This kid, let me tell you something about this kid. I am now. I'm not sure if he's going to be a first round pick or not. He's a fringe first round guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dangerously close to making him my guy for 2025
really?
NFL draft. He is an absolute menace. He's 6'3". He's tall. He's long. He is fast as hell. He's a good tackler. And he plays special teams with 2 pump blocks 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Listen, he's got 1 year of production at ECU. He tore his ACL last year, early in the season. So really no production last year. He's a JUCO transfer. Like, there's a lot of questions. But he also played against Michigan and played pretty well. So he
played well in that game.
It's not as though he doesn't have anything. I absolutely love this kid. 15 career starts at ECU, 12 pass breakups, 3 picks, 42% completion percentage, and a 59.7 passer rating.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Well, he's interesting because he's like 6'3", I believe.
Yeah.
Very light player, very fast. His straight line speed is incredible. You see that show up in man coverage too. Like, he's got a little bit of that Christian Gonzalez, effortless glide, just matching go balls down the sideline, go routes, which is awesome. I thought he was a little bit inconsistent in zone coverage. Just his eyes, what he was looking for, I thought. And this is I only watched one game of his. I didn't watch any of his 24 tape from what he did play, but his game against Michigan in 2023. So this is like the opener in 2023. This is a lot of football ago, but
That's also his first game at ECU coming from a JUCO, which is an interesting look at him.
Yeah, but he was. I mean, you could see he didn't have any issues with the speed against the Michigan team that ended up winning the Natty. Like, that was not worried about athleticism. I don't think with him. Just the subtler nuances of playing zone defense. I think he could get better at, and he's thin, which I think showed up in run defense at times. So I think your concern in this situation, if you pick him, if he falls this far and you're able to grab him, is okay. We have 2 corners now that are man corners as their strength, where they're more inconsistent in the zone. Both of them as thinner guys who might not necessarily be the best run defenders. That's okay. You just have to, know that when you're building the rest of your team. You have to know that we got to be strong with our slot corner has to be a good run defender. Your safeties have to be good run defenders. Your linebackers have to be fast enough to get outside, because you're not necessarily going to get the best, force defense from the outside with your corners. But that's, you can scheme around that.
Right.
And this is a guy who's got he goes all over the board. This is someone who could go off the board in the teens. Right. Or who could be there in the 40s easily. I don't really know where he's going to end up. So if he's on the board, would love this. You have the possibility to have one of the best man coverage secondaries in the NFL right away, which would be pretty sweet.
And I think that thank you, Matt. Matt Menendo says per his ECU bio, his first name is pronounced Savon, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, Savon. There you go. It's interesting that it would be spelled like that, but nevertheless. So I just think having, and Pasta says it too, having 2 lockdown corners, taking what's already a strength for you and building it to become an even bigger strength.
Yeah,
I think is a good thing. Like, to have 2 lockdown corners would be a good thing, right? And so, and I think, and you're right, like, if this kid were healthy, he's going in the teens easily, if not higher than that, right?
He'd probably be in the, like, where Quinyon Mitchell went last year, or like that. He'd be 100%
in
in
the
that
20s
range.
or somewhere on there, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
because was Quinyon Mitchell go? Did he go 18 or 22 or something like
When
that?
he
I
went
don't
to the
know.
Eagles, I don't remember what pick that.
Yeah, I don't, either way. So, but the point here, right, is that I still wonder if he'll be healthy for the combine. I'm not sure if he's going to be there next week. And so, but we'll see. So anyways, love him, big fan. He might end up being my guy for this year because I love him. I have a little man crush on him. All right. This is where people got a little mad at me. Traded up. So we had picked up a 4th round pick. So when I had originally moved back from pick 4 to pick 8, I picked up a 2nd round pick 57 and a 4th round pick 110. So now I've taken pick 38. We're at pick 57, except I'm taking pick 57 and combining it with the Patriots' original 4th round pick, which is 105, and moving up 8 spots with the Cincinnati Bengals to pick 49. By the way, the last time the Patriots traded up with the Bengals was for Christian Barmore. Worked out pretty good. So at pick 49, the Patriots take Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC. And look, maybe it's a little bit of a luxury pick. Maybe. Okay. You're not wrong. Fine. But my God, he's so much fun to watch. He just runs people over, craves contact, and has the long speed to like actually run by people too. He's not the fastest running back. He's not Henderson from Ohio State, but he's got enough long speed to outrun people. But he's got bell cow running back written all over him. And with Ramondre Stevenson fumbling 49 times last year, I don't think it's a terrible idea to take a chance on a guy, especially who your quarterback trusts this guy because he was his running back last year. So, I like the idea of doing that.
Now, will he still be on the board? I think it's a question here because it's fun. Like and this is one of the things, we use mock draft database because they have a really good consensus board at this point. These things are also ever changing. We're going to get a lot more info next week at the combine about how NFL teams feel as we start to hear a little bit more. And also you get some reactions to performances there.
Yep.
What's funny is seeing this when 2 days ago, Daniel Jeremiah for NFL.com put out a mock that has him going at 22 to the Chargers,
right?
Which I have to say feels like a fantastic fit there. But
does.
yeah, look, it's your top running back fumbled 7 times last year, and the guy behind him, Antonio Gibson, is not an every down back, and a guy who in the past has had some real fumble issues in the NFL.
Yeah,
I like both of those players. I am not confident either will be on the team in 2026. They're going to have to earn their way back in by not fumbling the football and just playing better overall. So, yeah, I got no issues with a running back here. And if he's the best player, like if he's available there, you're running it in the pick. He's a great player. He's a fantastic player. Obviously, you got the chemistry with Drake May, which is awesome, but like Vrabel clearly wants to be a tough physical football team, and this brings that. This would be an exceptional pick. He's a very, very good player.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's why I went Omarion Hampton at 49. He is 48th, by the way, on that consensus board right now. But again, as you said, Matt, that varies and changes. And sometimes guys that are on the board and they might be up higher, but they get taken earlier because, we need that guy or if someone falls in love with them, whatever the case may be. So, all right, pick 3, pick 4, I guess our 4th pick in the 3rd round. Pick 69, nice. Emory Jones, right tackle out of LSU, number 76 on the overall consensus board right now. I say right tackle because he is a right tackle. He will almost certainly be playing right tackle at LSU.
You mean in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't know why I said it LSU. Yes, in the NFL. And so I think that, he's young. He's going to be 21 when the season starts. But he's been starting for 3 years. He started as a true freshman. And so I think that he's got the tools to be a good player in the NFL. I don't know if I love him, but I do like the idea of him certainly at right tackle for the Patriots. And so that's why I went with Jones.
Jones is very much a tools guy. He's got the size and the length to play tackle in the NFL. Right. He's got some good tape. He was a guy who when we came into this year, there was discussion about LSU having multiple first-round tackles, and he just didn't. The play didn't live up to it this year. He's still very young. About a balance has been a concern for him. Consistency, pad level, all concerns. He's a big guy, so it's funny. He's a guy who, I think you're hoping would play right tackle. Maybe he plays left, but, I think you start him at right and see what would happen. He's also a guy who, not for length reasons, but for other reasons, might just end up kicking inside the guard at some point. Like, he's athletic and he's strong and he can do stuff. He just doesn't always have the balance that you need to play tackle. So, look at what happened with Mekhi Becton this year, where he kicks inside the guard and is incredibly effective there. Well. And if Emory Jones is kicking inside, it's probably going to be at left guard. So you'd see what would happen there. But he's a great athlete, and there's only so many of those guys that exist in the world. So I never really have an issue taking someone this athletic at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know if it'll work out, and I agree. In some places, Jared saying that he prefers Belton, and I don't necessarily blame him for that. And I know that there are some flaws in Jones's game. But again, when you get a guy that's that toolsy with that type of athleticism, that's 21 years old, you feel like you can coach him up. I think at that point, early in the third round, I think makes a ton of sense. So, all right, on to pick 77. And this might be my favorite pick of the entire, although maybe not, because Revel might be my favorite pick, but this might be Mike Vrabel's favorite pick of my mock draft. And that would be wide receiver from TCU, Jack Beck. This kid, listen, the hate that he got in the comment section of this mock draft was completely unwarranted and just not fair or right. He was called a slow slot multiple times. I don't see that. I don't see that he's a slow slot receiver. And oh, by the way, maybe you think he is a slow slot receiver. You know who else was a slow slot receiver? Puka Nacua. Do you know who else was a slow slot receiver? Cooper Kupp. These guys were slow slot receivers that all they did was get open and catch the ball. Who wants a guy that can get open and catch the ball? Why would you want a guy that can get open and reliably catch the ball all the time, who went to the Senior Bowl and put on a show, and then won MVP of the flipping game by catching a last-second touchdown pass? So this is the type of guy. He has the locker room intangibles. Of course, the story that happened with his brother, with his older brother, obviously is tragic and horrendous, right? But he has the locker room intangibles. You're trying to rebuild not only this team, but the culture here as well. This is the exact type of guy that you want to start building your culture with. And oh, by the way, he's probably the best blocking wide receiver in the draft as well. This is the guy that screams Mike Vrabel fit for me, and I think he'd be a great fit for the Patriots.
Yeah. Side note, because I got the Four Nations Championship here on my phone, paying attention to it. Team USA almost just put in an own goal in the final 20 seconds of a tied game to
oh my God.
It missed the net, thankfully. It was a cross-crease pass, and the net wide open. Defenseman just trying to get it out of there, and it missed the net by about a foot.
That's insane. What a way to lose that would have been. Sheesh.
Yeah. I have one, and I believe it's Jack Besh, based on the commentary.
Maybe you're right.
But I have one number that I want to bring up with Jack Best. Do you want to know what that is, Pat?
Let's hear it.
1.6. That is his drop percentage last year. He dropped one pass.
That's outrageous.
And he also, on 20 contested catches, caught 13 of them. And I think that's something, I haven't dug deep on the tape on him yet. I haven't gotten to that with my receivers. But the clips that you shared, you can see he's really good at winning at the catch point. He's not the fastest guy, but he accelerates quickly for someone his size.
Yeah.
So he's still able to get on top of corners and beat them. We talk about him as a slot. He's playing outside in a lot of the clips I saw into winning.
Right.
He's 6'2". Like, he was a good player last year. And I don't know. Like, he's been productive. He was good. Other than some of these measurables, I can't quite figure out why he's going this low in the draft, which is like, all right, that I'm in. Like, if he's able to win consistently and make plays, bring him in. This wide receiver room needs competition, needs dudes.
Well, and that's and ultimately what it comes down to, right? And someone says here that he feels like a short tight end, and he did start out at playing tight end, and so I understand that, right? But again, the guy just gets open and catches the ball. That's what he does. That's all he does. And he did it at the Senior Bowl, right? And so again, when you say, all right, the best of the best in college football, one-on-ones, how do you do? He did well. He excelled all week and then won MVP of the game. So, and not that the MVP of the game matters. I don't think it really matters that much. But the point being that he did well that week, put on a little bit of a show, and I think showed that he's not just another random guy, that he actually can play football and is a legitimate receiver prospect. And so I think that matters.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get into his tape after. I've seen the hype about him, but like the clips I've seen, he looks like a good player.
Yeah.
That's what we're in the business of finding right here. Like, sometimes you just got to overlook some of the overall stuff. And the speed stuff just doesn't bother me that much.
Again,
there's a lot of good,
that's the name.
I don't care about 40 times anymore because they get GPS tracked speed now. I'm assuming that they're going to have that on him. I see him in clips where he's fast enough to get behind the DBs. He's not a burner, He's not Chris Hogan. But if he's consistently winning contested catches, if he's good at that, which he played tight end, so he's probably used to playing in traffic there. And if he's got good footwork and he's able to accelerate well, all right, well, he can probably create enough space to be an impact player. He might not be Brandon Cooks, who's going to be speeding down the sideline behind guys. So you're going to need a little bit more accuracy to hit him. But also, if he can make catches, he can make catches. You don't have to be the fastest guy to be a deep threat if you can make those plays.
Right. Agreed. So,
and he had, he had over 1,000 yards receiving last year and 9 touchdowns. So,
yeah, pretty good year. All right. So, round 4, pick 110, Ty Robinson, defensive lineman. I call him a defensive lineman because I think he can play multiple positions, really everywhere from nose to edge. I think he's probably best in that 3 or 5 technique spot. But he's a big guy. He actually holds the record for most games played in Nebraska history, if you can believe that. He played 6 seasons at Nebraska because everyone got the extra year of eligibility for COVID. And so, look, is he the most dominant pass rusher of all time? No, he's not. But I like him in a run stopping role, and he can get after the passer a little bit as well. And so, I like him. I like what he can do. He did pretty well at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't like amazing, but he did pretty well at the Senior Bowl. And again, good against the run, and can get after the passer every now and again. he's kind of, I don't want to say he's maxed out because he's not maxed out, but he's played 6 years in Nebraska. So it's not like you're getting this raw, unfinished product, right? But he does a nice job shortening against the run. And so I would, I like him here, especially at pick 110.
Yeah, based on like the description of him, he seems like a taller Lawrence guy almost.
Kind of,
Just like useful player. You can line up in a bunch of spots around the line, and he'll help defend the run. I see it in the comments here, and the one consistent thing I've read about him is that he just plays too high. He's a tall dude.
Yeah,
and that's the issue. If you're really tall in that spot, you can play too high and lose your leverage and not be as effective. And obviously, there's concerns about a guy who's played literally more games than anyone else in Nebraska history. How much untapped potential is there here? But I think you see a guy who already can step into a role as a third or fourth defensive tackle and be a run stuffer. And, you see a path to the 53-man roster. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And then round 5, pick 145, Luke Kandra. Listen, man, this guy, again, sometimes you just find like some of these like mid-round guys are fun. Kandra's a guy that like is just awesome. He just mauls people. Footspeed's not great. He's not necessarily like the fastest guy ever, but man, he can play guard, and I think he has a little bit of position flexibility as well to play center. But it's just fun watching him play football. He just goes downhill and just absolutely just destroys people. And so I'm a Luke Kandra fan, and so I wanted to get him here in the 5th round.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but he seems very mobile from the clips that you shared, which would be awesome. Played right guard, but I think he started as a left guard. I think you could probably just swap him over and let him compete for a job there. And you got 4 spots open on this line right now, I think. So just keep drafting guys, and I like it.
Depth piece, you know what I mean? And really, that's Kandra's more of a depth piece than he would be a starter necessarily, but nevertheless. All right, Jalen Conyers is my next pick. Round 7, 3 7th-round picks. This is 219. By the way, Pat Stats mentions Thomas Perry from D3. God, I can't remember the name of the school, but Middlebury. That's it. Thank you, D3 Middlebury. He's going to be on a mock coming up soon. He wasn't on this one, but he's going to be mock coming up soon. Anyways, Jalen Conyers is my pick at 219. He's a tight end from Texas Tech. A little risky. This guy, though, he lined up. He lined up at quarterback a ton in the Wildcat. Super agile, runs like the wind, and actually threw the ball a few times as well. Played quarterback in high school a bit, but he's a big dude, 6'3", 263. He's a big guy. And so, just a little bit of a tool. He's not a fast guy. I mean, I'm sorry, not a good blocker is what I meant to say. And so, you're dealing with a guy that's probably going to be a Jaheim Bell type of player. You're getting another one of those gadget guys or whatever, but he's a fun prospect. And so I figured in the 7th round, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm down. You always want to draft athletes at tight end. This guy hasn't been super productive, but we're talking about a 7th rounder here. So, like you said, another Jaheim Bell, throw it out there, and hopefully one of them hits.
Yeah. My next guy at picks 222 right now is at 228 on the consensus board. I think that's going to be significantly higher. I think he's probably going to end up going somewhere in the 5th round as opposed to the 7th round. But again, I'm just following the consensus board right now. That's Jamar James from Florida. Fast as hell is how I can describe Jamar James. He was the fastest linebacker at the combine, or at the Senior Bowl. I'm sorry. It showed up. His technique may not be perfect, but he's a great blitzer, and he does well in coverage as well. And and he does a nice job against the run as well. So, but man, he's just really what it is the speed and the athleticism from Jamar James. And so I do think that he's going to end up being higher than he is right now. But again, just following the consensus board, he's at 228 right now, and so here he is at pick 222.
Yeah. Pass linebacker. They need it. They don't really need to say anything else there.
That's correct. Yeah. And then finally, the last pick at 240. This guy is 246 on the consensus board right now, and that's Isaac. I think it's Tesla. I think is what it is. From Arkansas, 6'2", 212. Showed out at both the Senior Bowl practices and during the game. He's a deep threat, is what he is. He's a deep threat, and so listen. It's day 3. It's the last pick in the draft, and so look, let's just see what happens. Right? He's a guy that went to D2. Was playing D2 and then transferred to Arkansas for his final 2 seasons. And just what shows up on tape is the speed. It showed up at the Senior Bowl where he was running by guys, and I think it showed up at Arkansas as well. And so, again, can that translate to what the Patriots want to do? Maybe, potentially. But he's also not just – he's a speed guy, really, but he's big-bodied speed guy. And so not the route tree that Alec Pierce had. But I do think that it's an Alec Pierce type of player, right? Alec Pierce, Kenny Galladay, guy like that, like, hey, if he can run like that and he can make those contested catches, then, he has a chance at making the roster with the speed, with the height that he has. So anyways, that's my final pick there.
Yeah, I liked it. I like the Tesla pick here. And it says, what do you call it? I believe if I'm reading the PFF page correctly, no drops this past year. Yeah. No drops in college either year at Arkansas.
It's pretty impressive. Now, I don't know what his number, I don't think his numbers were huge. But still, when you're a deep ball target, right? When you're a deep ball target, to not have any drops is pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean that the ball is getting to you every time or whatever the case may be, but a lot of those passes are going to end up being contested. Not a lot of them, but some of those passes certainly going to end up being contested catches. And so you're running at full speed coming down the field and coming down with those passes. So anyways, that's what we got. So again, just as a reminder, Matt's doing the same thing. I do it every year. Matt does it every year. It's a new guy in every draft, right? And
I will say, I feel like we made that rule when the Patriots were picking like the middle or the end of the firsts. We may need to relax it a little bit for the first pick because if they're picking at 4, there's really only so many options.
You're right. I will say I'm going to continue to do it. And so if I got to move around the board a little bit or, trade down or whatever the case may be, I still haven't put Travis Hunter in there yet. And so, that one's still on the board for me. Maybe the Patriots like the original guy that I had to block out of there.
Want to get Cam Ward?
Maybe the Patriots will trade Drake May, draft Cam Ward number 1. You never know. No, but we'll move around the board a little bit. So, but all right, let's get the heck out of here. The Four Nations game's heading overtime, and so let's get everyone out of here. Yeah. So, anyways, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate it, and we'll be back next week talking more Patriots goings-ons and certainly the Combine for sure. So anyways, that does it for us. Thank you. Be good to each other and go Pats.